There has not been one significant military gain made by any of the Islamic regime of Iran's proxies. These people are bad, and they're bad not because of Islamic regime of Iran. They are bad because they are bad. You guys are 400 million in this region, another 2 billion globally. If you guys were actually an all-powerful ummah that God was protecting and that God was on your side, you easily would have been able to defeat us. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. Iran's sphere of influence is slowly failing here in the Middle East. Actually, I would say it's more than slowly. It's actually quickly and catching up pace right now with Israel's assault on all of Iran's proxies. Let's check out exactly what's going on. With a letter or a message, a personal message from the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, translated into Farsi to the Iranian people. Let's take a look at what Benjamin Netanyahu has to say.
People of Iran, as we see history unfold before our very eyes, I can only imagine what you're feeling right now. Your oppressors spent over $30 billion supporting Assad in Syria. Today, after only 11 days of fighting, his regime collapsed into the dust. Your oppressors spent billions supporting Hamas in Gaza. Today, their regime lies in ruins. Your oppressors spent over $20 billion supporting Hezbollah in Lebanon. In a matter of weeks, most of Hezbollah's leaders, its rockets, and thousands of its terrorists went up in smoke.
Now, here's something we know in the Middle East. To prove your point that you're winning, this isn't fighting a war in the West. We're not fighting a war against a Western army. The Islamic-backed jihadis forwarding Arab supremacism and Islamic supremacism in the Middle East over the heads of Christians and Jews like me, for this entire region, they need to have their face rubbed in the S word, for a lack of a better term. They need to have their face literally rubbed in it. And that is the only way that they understand. So actually, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu coming on YouTube here with a personal message to the people of Iran after Israel completely destroyed Assad's army and or any semblance of what was left over from Assad's army. And then furthermore, the collapse of the regime, of Assad's regime, by the hands of these rebels, which again, I've said many times in my content, not necessarily good people. A lot of these people are ISIS-backed or Al-Qaeda-backed or affiliated. But taking this moment to rub in the face of all these jihadis, your failure on Hezbollah, your failure with Hamas, your failure with the Hezbollah in Syria, your failure with the Houthis, every single regime and every single terror proxy by the hands of Iran is going to fail when coming into a battle with Israel.
The money your oppressors stole from you literally went up in smoke. You must be furious imagining the new roads, schools, hospitals that could have been built with the tens of billions of dollars your dictators wasted backing terrorists who lose over and over and over again.
Very true.
Do you know why Iran's oppressors keep losing? It's not only because they're incompetent and cruel. They are. It's because they seek to conquer other nations, to impose fundamentalist tyranny on the Middle East, on the entire world.
So for all the claims, and this is where Bibi really gets it right, for all the claims that Israel is this colonial nation, white supremacist colonialism coming in and conquering, we're going to take a look in a second. Actually, you know what? Let's do it right now. Let's take a look at Iran's sphere of influence in the Middle East. You see that tiny little red dot right there? That tiny, tiny little red dot? That's Israel. And even within this tiny red dot, okay, even within this puny little red dot, both that bottom left corner and that middle right corner are pretty much influenced by the Islamic regime of Iran. So when it comes to colonialism, look how large Iran is. And then look at all of its proxies here in Syria, here in Lebanon, here in Yemen. They are literally like 10 times the size of Israel. And not to mention that every single country in this region is Islamic. Every single country in this region has an element of Islamic jihadism that is trying to either quell or supports. So when we talk about colonialism, the only country I see currently colonizing the Middle East is Iran and its Islamic regime that's currently spreading its terrible ideology at everybody. And yeah, you see here in the yellow, Turkey, parts of Syria, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Oman. Just because they are yellow doesn't mean that they're not totally on the side of Iran. So that neutrality right there that you see here in in the key here, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not on the side of Iran. Neutral/hedging means that they're kind of open to the idea. And I would say that actually this isn't the greatest representation, because just because it's yellow doesn't mean that they don't openly support the acts of jihad or violent Islamic colonialism. They maybe just disagree with the religious aspect of it. So keep in mind, the only actual colonialism that is happening in the Middle East is by the hands of Muslims, who, mind you, Islam and Arabians, Arabs come from this particular region where my mouse is right now, right here. They do not come from anywhere else in this region. Everywhere else in this region was something else before Islam. Please remember this. Neither Israel, nor Jordan, nor Iraq, nor Syria, nor Turkey, or Iran, or Afghanistan, or Pakistan, or Egypt, or Sudan, or Somalia was Arab or Muslim just a few hundred years ago. We're not even talking that long, just a few hundred years ago. So when people talk to me about Israel being a colonialist nation, come tell my brown ass that I'm a colonialist. Thank you very much. And I'll let my prime minister continue his speech.
The only thing Israel seeks is to defend our state. But in so doing, we're defending civilization against barbarism. The historic events we witness today are a chain reaction to the pounding of Hamas, the decimation of Hezbollah, the targeting of Nasrallah, the blows we delivered to the Iran regime's axis of terror. And all this came, as President Trump pointed out this week, because of Israel and its fighting success. I want to make clear, Israel wants peace. We want peace with all those who truly want peace with us. And I have no doubt that you, the people of Iran, know this. I know that just as we want peace with you, you want peace with us. But you suffer under the rule of a regime that subjugates you and threatens us. You know what this regime is truly terrified of? It's terrified of you.
True.
The people of Iran.
True.
And one day, I know that, one day this will change. One day Iran will be free. Women, life, freedom, zan, zandegi, azadi.
Wow, that's awesome. I don't know if I've ever heard Bibi Netanyahu say zan zandegi, which means women, life, freedom in Iran. It's been a popular chant for Yazidis, for Iranians, for Kurdish people, basically begging for freedom from the clutches of Islamic radicalism.
That is the future of Iran. That is the future of peace. And I have no doubt that we will realize that future together a lot sooner than people think. I know, and I believe, we will transform the Middle East into a beacon of prosperity, progress, and peace. Thank you.
Pretty powerful stuff that Benjamin Netanyahu is actually reaching out to the people of Iran directly. It's not the first time that this has happened, yeah? This has happened multiple times throughout this war. I mean, I would say at this point, Israel is openly trying to at least initiate in a sort of pseudo coup d'etat of the Islamic regime of Iran. The stage is being set. Let's put it that way. The stage has been being set for a long time now. Now, one of the reasons why I'm making this video is because the Islamic regime of Iran's sphere of influence is indeed failing. And we are seeing the collapse of it. We'll read through some articles, but again, looking at this map, just to go over a summary of how Israel has been attacked and assaulted by 7 different fronts since the beginning of this war. We'll focus on a few of them right now. Hamas, here in southwest Israel, in the Gaza Strip, had attacked on October 7th. A day later, South Lebanon begins to attack Israel via the Islamic regime's proxy of Hezbollah, also attacking us from Syria and also attacking us from Iraq. All 3 of them Hezbollah run. Now, that supply route from Tehran, which is here, has been coming straight through Iraq to Syria to Lebanon. Okay? We've also seen attacks from Jordan. We've also seen attacks from Egypt. Yes, they were by Islamic radicals, not on the governmental level, on a national level, but they have happened. And of course, who could forget about the Houthis, the Yemenite terror proxy, which literally is ignoring the suffering of its entire nation, which is starving. Okay, the poorest country in the Middle East, one of the poorest countries in Yemen, with the worst human rights violations possible, is rather than spending money feeding their people, giving them water, which they clearly are lacking, investing anything in education and infrastructure. No, they rather fire ballistic missiles at central Israel, which woke my ass up a couple days ago at 4 a.m. where I had to run into a bomb shelter because it exploded 5 minutes from my house. So that's what these guys down here, who have never had a war with Israel, who have no beef with Israel, there's no territorial claims. No, Yemen has nothing to do with Israel other than the fact that they ethnically cleansed their Jewish population to Israel. So all those people who left Yemen because of Islamic refugees, as refugees of Islamic persecution, who are Jewish Yemenites who now live in central Israel and other parts of Israel, now are having rockets fired at them by the country that persecuted them around 100 years ago, between 100 to 70 years ago, to Israel. Tell me the irony. Where is the colonialism here? Please, ladies and gentlemen, enlighten me if I am wrong. So that's what we're looking at when it comes to the fronts that Israel has had to endure since the beginning of this October 7th war that was brought upon us by Hamas, one of the Islamic regime's terror proxies. Okay, that's the map that we're looking at. Now, as for the progress and where that's going, we'll get back to that in a little bit. Let's read some of the articles. Iran's Khamenei downplays need for proxies across the Middle East. This is an article from the Jerusalem Post. The Islamic Republic doesn't have proxy forces. Yemen fights due to their faith. That's bullshit. That is absolutely not true. Hezbollah, Hamas, and Islamic Jihad fight because their beliefs compel them to do so, Khamenei said. I will say that there is an article of truth there, okay, that Hezbollah, Hamas, and Islamic Jihad are shitty from their core. The Islamic regime of Iran only emboldens their shittiness, okay? But they are bad people at their core. So he actually is kind of true on that front. Hamas would still be attacking Israel regardless of if the Islamic regime had been funding it. Islamic regime of Iran just allows Hamas to keep going for longer. Same thing with Hezbollah. These people are not bound, they are not created by the Islamic regime of Iran, but the Islamic regime helps keep them alive. It's like an octopus sitting in Iran that has its tentacles stretched out, and those tentacles are feeding these different proxies. But yes, he's absolutely correct. These people are bad. And they're bad not because of Islamic regime of Iran. They are bad because they are bad. But when a bunch of bad people come together and work together, it makes the whole situation very bad for everybody. So he is technically right. I will give the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the Iran's supreme pooper, some credit there. Iran's supreme leader Ali Khamenei said that Iran does not need proxy forces. If we decide to take action against the enemy, one day we don't need proxy forces, he said during his speech on Sunday. He also posted the claims on his social media account X Twitter. I forgot, by the way, to mention that one of the other fronts that has happened was two direct attacks, which I was here for both of them. They were very scary. One of them, I actually live streamed the entire experience, was terror ballistic missiles being fired from Iran and drones being fired from Iran directly onto Israel. So that's one of the other fronts that I did not mention at all. And those rockets only ended up killing and injuring Arab Muslim Palestinians. Just as an FYI, not one single Jew or Zionist was hurt in that process. The claim contradicts the actual actions of Iran in the region, as the Islamic Republic backs groups such as Hezbollah, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Hamas, and the Houthis, as well as a plethora of Iraqi militias. Iran's supreme leader made by the comments in the context of Iran's recent setbacks in the region. Iranian ally Bashar al-Assad was ousted from power by Syrian rebel groups on December 8. This was a major blow to Iran. And don't forget the amazing pictures that are coming out on the internet right now of Bashar al-Assad in his underwear and covering his nipples because he's doing some scandalous photo shoots. That is definitely the pictures that the Islamic regime of Iran wants of a leader that they invested so much money into and so much money into his country. So definitely keep that in mind. Just as an ego thing, I'm not going to show them on screen because YouTube will probably censor them. But just imagine what the Islamic regime of Iran is going through right now with this public embarrassment of what's going on in Syria. All the money that they invested there is gone. All the bases are gone. All the weapons are gone. Their route of being able to bring weapons into Lebanon is gone. And now they have pictures coming out online of Assad in bikinis and in Speedos and in all these weird clubs and stuff. And he's the guy who's representing their proxy in Syria. So not a great look. So we have here This temporarily cuts off Iran's land routes to Hezbollah proxy, which we used to go through Iraq and Syria, as I mentioned earlier. If it's not clear if Iran will find a new route to supply weapons to Hezbollah, which has been greatly weakened by Israel's actions. It totally could do that through Turkey. That's definitely a thing that it might be able to do. It seems that Turkey doesn't really mind the Islamic regime the Islamic regime's terrorism and kind of supports it. So it may be able to do that directly, but Syria seems to not be effing around with Iran anymore at all. So it's still going to be a bit tricky. The Iranian Ayatollah discussed the issues of proxies more broadly. They say that the Islamic regime has lost its proxies in the region. The Islamic Republic doesn't have proxy forces. Yemen fights due to their faith. Hezbollah, Hamas, and Islamic Jihad fight because their beliefs compel them to. The point he's trying to make is that all these Iranian-linked groups make their own decisions. In some ways, he has a point. Like I said, they do, in a lot of ways, they make their own decisions in a lot of ways. They are shitty decisions that are backed by Iran, but they do operate a lot of times on their own. That's why they fire at their own people inconsistently and don't make any military gains at all. It's pure terrorism. Pure terrorism. There has not been one significant military gain made by any of the Islamic regime of Iran's proxies. None of these groups have claimed any new territory, have done any damage, any significant damage on Israeli military infrastructure. Yes, they've killed people, but that hasn't affected the long-term strategy of Israel. It's hurt morale. It's terrible. We have hostages in Gaza. But as for us still being able to stand and fight, we're stronger now than we were on October 7th. So literally nothing has been accomplished. And this is the one thing I have been preaching since I started making my advocacy content for Israel since October 7th. That none of this has made any sense strategically. And it has become so apparent now. You can see that these guys have no idea what they're doing. They're literally just throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks. None of it makes any sense. The Houthis emerged largely without major Iranian support and only became more powerful once Iran began to help them with their drone and missile program, which basically went something like this. The Houthis were like, oh, you want to kill Yahudis? We want to kill Yahudis. And then Iran was like, you want to kill Yahudis? Here, take a bunch of money. Go kill Yahudis. That's it. That was the whole situation. That's the only thing they have in common. Hamas is not an Iranian creation. It is linked to the Muslim Brotherhood and is backed by Turkey and Qatar, two Western allies. This is very much true. In essence, Iran only piggybacked on Hamas's success by backing it. Hezbollah is much more an Iranian proxy. However, in recent years, Hezbollah became so powerful that it appeared that the Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps was in some ways the junior partner. I will add to this. I will add to say that, yes, Hamas and Hezbollah were not created by the Islamic regime of Iran, but again, its funding emboldens them to do the terrorism that they continue to do. But it is very much true that these guys are terrible on their own, and they would do this stuff on their own. And I do not like people when they infantilize Palestinians and southern Lebanese. I'm not going to say all of Lebanese people, but generally I do give a bad credit to all Lebanese people for not standing up for their country enough. But I will say that they would do this stuff with or without the Islamic regime of Iran. And do not infantilize them. Do not make them seem like babies, like they don't know what they're doing, and that the Islamic regime of Iran is the only reason that they're operating in this way. No. Palestinians and Lebanese have very, very, very bad character traits across the board. These people need to be put in check. Their behavior and their culture, their religion, these things that are fueling this extremism need to be put in check. They need to be checked at the door. And we need to be able to say, you've got some serious pitfalls as a society. We should not be afraid to say that. That is very, very, very important. They would operate like this with or without Iran. Please do not infantilize them. Do not make them seem like don't make them seem like babies who don't know what they're doing. Very, very important distinction to make. In essence, Iran only piggybacked on Hamas' success by backing it, especially given the fact that the Qasem Soleimani, the IRGC Quds Force leader, was killed by the U.S. in 2020. The IRGC looked to Hassan Nasrallah for leadership. So basically, that's a little bit about what's been going on in Khamenei's outlook on the Islamic regime. We've got one more article here to look at. Iran, dumbfounded by Israeli strikes, saw investment in proxies go down the tubes. I did read this article last night in a live stream. I just wanted to look at one part of it. Iran's money down the tubes. This is probably the most important part of the article. Meanwhile, Netanyahu said that part of its conflicts with Hamas in Gaza and Hezbollah in Lebanon, Israel has already greatly damaged Iran's activities around Israel. We knocked down Hezbollah, which was supposed to protect Iran, and Iran didn't protect Hezbollah either, and neither of them protected Bashar al-Assad's regime in Syria. So we split the whole axis down the middle, he said. Iran spent probably $30 billion in Syria, while they literally don't have electricity right now in Iran to keep people warm during the winter. They spent $30 billion on terror. Another $20 billion in Lebanon, down the drain. I was just on the border of southern Lebanon. It looks like Gaza. It is horrific over there. God knows how much on Hamas, and it's all gone down the tubes. The Iranians now have no supply line. We warned Assad to not let Iran supply Hezbollah with weapons through Syria. He played dumb. The Syrian dictator fell to a lightning offensive by Islamist-led rebels earlier this month. And that's it. And that's how the cookie crumbles, my love. That's what happens when you F around. You find out. We have been warning this since the day of our creation. This is the part that people don't understand about Israel's survival tactics. All of these people, we're not living in 1948 anymore. We're not living in 1956. We're not living in 1967. These countries have multiplied their population tenfold. Arabs lack the motivation. Arabs do not have the motivation, and Muslims do not have the motivation to fight a war against Israel. They know they are going to lose. Every single time they have started a war against us, we have come out as the victor again and again and again. The Islamic Ummah has shown clear incompetence to come together cohesively and stop killing each other for 5 seconds to deal with the Zionist entity or the Zionist threat. But what I always pose to is, you guys are 2 billion in number, Muslims around the world. 400 million Arabs in the Middle East alone, who mostly subscribe to Islam, a lot of them to radical Islam. We are a nation of 7 million Jews. There's another 2 million Arabs that live amongst us that do, and a lot of times fight with us against this war that you guys subject us to. 7 million Jews here in the Middle East. That's it. You guys are 400 million in this region, another 2 billion globally. If you guys were actually an all-powerful ummah that God was protecting and that God was on your side, you easily would have been able to defeat us long ago. But you guys are the most incompetent people on planet Earth at the moment. Wake up and realize the Zionists and the Jews are not your problem. You are your own worst enemy. And we, quite frankly, are not afraid anymore. And I think that the time for the democratic, sort of open-minded liberal Israel that we portray in the media, that we're all about peace and love, I think those days are over. We need to be scary. We need to have the fear of our neighbors and the respect, because in the Arab world and the Muslim world, the only way you talk is through fear and through power. There is no such thing as peace talks. There's no such things as truces and treaties. It's all bullshit. It's all about how hard you hit and how many gains you make militarily. And guess what? We're taking the cake right now. And I could not be prouder to stand behind my country, Israel, and every single person that is supporting in the Middle East to see, hopefully, one day, a true beacon of peace and love and cooperation between Arabs, Jews, Muslims, Israelis in the Middle East. The only way it can come is through Israel at this point. That is it. Nobody else is going to usher that day in. Everyone else in this region is either sitting on their ass with their hands under their butt or unwilling to do anything, or, on the other hand, trying to fight Israel. So we'll make it happen ourselves. We'll do it on our own. We don't need your help. We can do it on our own. And hopefully when President Trump takes effect in the United States of America, he can also aid us in the process, which I think will be a positive thing. Thank you guys for watching my video, and I'll see you in the next one. I love you long time. Goodbye, clats.
If you believe in my content and want to support me, just know your help is needed. There's a bunch of great ways to monetarily support the channel. Some of the best ways to support me happen to be PayPal, buy me a coffee, or joining our Patreon community. Links to them can be found in the pinned comments or the description of every one of my videos. Joining my Patreon community gives you access to exclusive content and the chance to talk to me on our Discord server. I also go live almost every day here on YouTube. And after my live streams, me and my patrons from Patreon head over to our Discord server to an exclusive after-party hangout. Your support is the only way that I can keep creating the content that you love watching for me. Thank you.